Welcome everybody to the first episode of PTBO Connect. We are joined here by Susan Tung, owner and operator of both Hanoi House on Hunter and Lansdowne Street. And we're excited to have her talk a little bit about her experiences over the last couple of years and what brought her to open a couple of restaurants in Peterborough. Susan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
No worries. So we'll get started here. I'm going to kind of go after the elephant in the room. You guys opened early last year before. It was right before the pandemic hit. And how long did you guys have before you had to close the doors down?
Yeah, so we did our soft opening on February 14th, 2020. Okay. So we were only open for a few weeks before, that day that Justin Trudeau went on the news, and we were all like, okay, this is a thing. Everyone stay home. So we only had 3 weeks of business before we had to shut down, closed up for 6 weeks, and then reopened for takeout and delivery, and that became our game.
Exactly, and I think that's the big thing we've watched through all the restaurants is adapting to it. I know that you were one of the holdouts for Skip the Dishes and Uber Eats for quite a while, along with some other restaurants in town. And I think it just got to the point where everybody had to get on board and kind of adapt. And then what was really fun is not only did you adapt the Hunter Street location to that, but then you expanded right away and went to Lansdowne Street, which was a completely big game. It was a big game changer for you. It was a big move to get out of the downtown office core and get out to where there was parking, where people can get to, and where Skip the Dishes and Uber Eats drivers can get to quite a bit easier as well. Was that always the plan, 2 locations, or did you kind of jump to that once things went sideways downtown?
So it's not that downtown really went sideways. It was actually just an opportunity that came up. I did have the intention of opening more than one location. Did not plan on opening a second location that fast and during COVID. So you just kind of had to roll with the punches and just take everything on as it comes. The downtown core is great for starting a business. Rent is very affordable. There's other great small businesses around. There's a lot of support from the community. But obviously being on Lansdowne's a little bit different, with parking, just more traffic. The demographic is a little bit different, don't get me wrong, but we saw the opportunity, and I remember seeing the for lease sign come up, and I called the guy right away because I knew I just needed to see the space, right? Because you never know. And I didn't know how much it cost either, so I was like, why not? Yep. But we were doing well. We had a really great summer in our first year with the patio season and with takeout and delivery. So I just felt like, I really just went with my gut. And I really believed in what we did, the product that we put out, and the people that we have that still work with us to this day. Without them, we wouldn't be able to grow.
That's exactly. And I've been kind of noticing as well, and I was thinking about it going into this podcast and what we were going to talk about. The one thing I'll say about Hanoi House as a whole is it almost has a passionate following in the city. When you ask people where to go or what to eat, there's lots of great options in Peterborough. That's what makes Peterborough so great. But the people that say Hanoi House are passionate about it. I was just talking to Joel, who's out in the other room, and every time I've ever asked him, hey, you want to meet up for lunch and talk about this? He immediately, Hanoi House. And then once Lansdowne opened, what was amazing is it's an easy place to meet. Downtown's great when you're working downtown or when you're already downtown, but now there's somewhere where 3 or 4 cars can pull in and park. You can go inside, grab a bigger table. There's going to be seating. That was a huge game changer that I saw happen in terms of adapting to the market. And then obviously for delivery, you now have the option to deliver from both restaurants. So unfortunately, we're back into a lockdown now. That's given you the opportunity to cover everything from Fleming all the way back over towards Trent, which is great as well. I live on the outskirts of town. It's hard to get a lot of restaurants delivered. And so to be able to cover the entire city is pretty amazing. Yeah,
I know where you live. You're in the north end, right?
Yep, exactly.
We do quite a few deliveries on that side over there. It's been interesting, right? You want to do delivery, but at the same time, the logistics of delivery are very challenging. The scheduling of people, you don't want people to order Skip because they take such a big cut. But at the same time, the drivers are so just readily available. Yep. And the technology is all there. But, we offer delivery via our own website. So we're just using third-party services or myself or whoever we've got on board just running deliveries. The logistics are very challenging, but in a time like this, you really have to do whatever you can to survive at this point.
Well, it's the adaptation, right? So going back into this lockdown, obviously you're still open with both restaurants. You see a lot of restaurants that are closing, and as much as I respect their decision to close while in-person dining isn't available, it's a huge opportunity for the ones that were able to adapt early, get on those platforms, have their own delivery staff, because obviously everybody still needs to eat. I'm going to double back, though, to when you first went into the first lockdown. Obviously, it wasn't as big as, oh, should we close the doors? Should we walk away from this? I mean, you were 3 weeks in, still excited, had a huge following already. But what was the thought process? I mean, you were pretty much told to stop working 3 weeks into business. Obviously, there was anger, frustration. We were in a pandemic, so there was probably some nervous feelings as well. But what kind of got you through that? Like when somebody hits their first roadblock, and hopefully it's not as big as the one you did, what kind of pushes you through that?
I was actually just super bored, to be honest. Like I have never not worked for that many consecutive weeks in my life. Like, you know, in university, I had 3 jobs and I went to school full time and I was a varsity athlete. Like my life has just always been busy, go. And like, I'm a kid that was supposed to, you know, in my parents' mind, you know, go to med school and achieve great things and save the world kind of thing. Right. So for me to stay at home for that long, for everyone really, very challenging, especially when you just launched something you've been working on for months. You really just want to get out there, do whatever you have to, especially at the time I was very available to work. You know, if I was going to be there working full time, it's not a big deal. But we were so bored at home. My husband and I were building chicken coops and selling them on Kijiji.
Just for something to do.
Something to do, because our brains are just, we can't sit at home and do nothing.
I tried. So when the pandemic first hit, it was actually, I'm trying to remember back to like all those moments. It was when the NBA closed the season, when they shut down. That was my oh shit moment. Yeah. I actually texted Erica. She was out and I was like, you know what? I kind of ignored everything to that point. That was like the toilet paper rush, all of that. And when the NBA announced that the season was over, I was like, maybe you should go to Walmart and stock up on some stuff, and maybe you should go to the bank and grab some cash. Like, just make sure you have the bare necessities in life. And so she went and did that. And we had a manufacturing company at the time. It was before Y Drive went live. And I actually was excited. I was like, oh, I haven't had a break in forever. And so I had all these great ideas. I downloaded a program to learn how to do some 3D modeling, like some CAD work. I was excited for a couple weeks off. We sent out emails to all of the orders in place, said they'd be delayed. We're closing down the shop. We're closing down the sales side. And that lasted for like maybe 48 hours. And then a mixture, like you said, of I was bored out of my mind. And work doesn't stop. And so I went back to work and just worked from home for those few weeks. And then, everything started to luckily start opening up a little bit. But I mean, we're still feeling it. There's still supplier issues. There's still transportation issues, just like with everything else. Have you guys seen that in the restaurant industry at all? Like, is there supply issues?
Oh my gosh, it's terrible. We deal with it every day, you know, whether it's packaging for takeout or availability of certain herbs or produce, right? Like, you don't realize how connected we are in the world until there's actually a disruption somewhere. So for example, you know, with Hanoi House, we import a lot of our items, right? Like the rice noodles and stuff. So if Thailand or Vietnam are struggling with whatever's going on over there, it's hard to get those dry goods over to this country. Yep. It's resulted in me having to buy things in advance, like really stockpile noodles, the boxes and everything, which is costly at the same time too, right?
Well,
we're not
risky.
making that money to just pay it off that quick.
Well, it's risky for you because you, at that point, never knew what the next order was going to be. Are you going to be open next week? Are you going to be closed? I mean, it was back and forth so often. Now we're back to closed. So the idea of, putting everything you have into stockpiling goods, you could find out you're closed for 6 months. So there's a lot of risk there as well.
It's pretty funny actually at the Lansdowne location. So with like the noodle soups, right? There's 2 sizes. There's a regular and there's a large. The large bowl, not as commonly ordered. So we actually have 6 of these bowls in the restaurant, and we've survived off of 6 bowls this whole time because we keep going into lockdown. We've never been busy enough that we've had to order, like, no one's ordered more than that. Now that I've said it, it's going to happen the next time we open.
Intentionally, everybody's going. Yeah, that was the greatest upsell you've ever done in your life.
Yeah, because no one's ordering larges.
Yeah, and anyone that now comes in there is going to be like, I'm ordering a large just to be that person.
Just to be that person. We should all order larges.
Yeah.
So now I try to buy more bowls, but because of the supply issue, I can't get them in time. So this whole time we've just been like teetering on just these 6 bowls, which is hilarious for us, but you make it work.
Ours was delivery bags. So we tried to get into the delivery game, and actually as of today, it's coming back, not because of the lockdown, but just because of a great opportunity that came. But as you know, because you were one of the ones that was using us there for a bit, we tried. And then honestly, rideshare just took off too much for us to continue to do deliveries. It was too taxing to keep those drivers available for deliveries, and they're time sensitive. But bags was the hardest thing to come by. And it wasn't that they didn't exist. It was that because there was so much demand from Uber Eats and Skip the Dishes and all the other companies that exist elsewhere, we were, if we ordered them, we were talking like $300 for a bag that the week before would have been $50.
Sorry, are you talking about like a thermal bag?
Yeah, like the thermal, like
wow.
Yeah, they went absolutely insane in price. If you tried to order them off Amazon, they were now into the hundreds of dollars a bag at the time, and so that was one of the reasons we were like, well, it doesn't make sense. Like if we're gonna make $1 or $2 a delivery, that's a lot of deliveries we got to make back per driver for these bags that are gonna get tossed around. So yeah, it was an interesting thing to see the supply chain affect almost everybody. There wasn't any industry that didn't get affected by it, and I think that made people more patient. Like if they went in to see you, nobody was getting frustrated because you didn't have the right container or because this didn't exist. And same as the guys that were ordering equipment off of us, if we said, hey, the cylinders are on back order, it's going to be 2 more weeks, everybody was understanding because everybody was in the same boat.
Yeah, everyone gets it now. We try to be eco-friendly and use compostable containers, but sometimes it's just hard to get. You want to keep everyone happy, but at the same time, it is what it is. What can you do? So every day there's usually some kind of back order on something, and you got to just make do with what you got, right?
Oh, 100%. I'm going to go back to opening the first location. Was it something you had planned for years, or was it a spur of the moment decision, an opportunity came up? What was the thought process pre-pandemic, pre all the roadblocks you hit, just for you to get the first restaurant open?
Yeah, so I grew up here in the restaurant business. And being a minority in Peterborough, there is not a lot of different ethnic food to eat here, right? So we'd always go to Toronto to get the food that we want to eat and stuff. This idea has been, in the making for like 10 plus years, even since I was like a kid. I'd be like, oh, it'd be so great to eat pho in Peterborough. But, we'd always go to Toronto to do that.
You just, by the way, Matt, our producer here, was questioning how to pronounce it before we started the show. And he just got his confirmation as how to pronounce it.
It wasn't pho I was wondering about. It was I get it's like a sausage sub. I don't know how to say it.
Banh mi?
That's it. Yeah.
I always tell people this. I'm actually not Vietnamese. I'm actually Chinese.
Okay.
Grew up in a Chinese restaurant, but I just have such a strong passion for Vietnamese food. So even I could be butchering it, but like a lot of people call it pho, which, I understand why, it just phonetically, that just sounds like what it is, but it's pronounced pho. And again, might not be right either. But depending where you're from, actually, north and south, there's like different dialects and stuff too. So same with other Asian languages, depending where you're from.
Either way, no matter how you say it, they'll serve it to you. They'll sell it to you.
Yeah. Even if you called it like something weird, I'd still give it to you.
I just point at the menu wherever I want, and that's pretty much it.
I found one dish at Hanoi House that I fell in love with, and that's just my order every time now. And is it vermicelli?
Vermicelli,
okay.
yeah.
I'm like, I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but yeah, as soon as I found the chicken vermicelli, add shrimp, I was like, this is it. This is what to order.
It's funny. Actually, random fact. Apparently, Apple, like big company Apple, if you go into the store and pronounce something wrong, they don't correct you because they don't want the customer to feel stupid. So I kind of follow the same method as I won't correct you. I'll just be like, okay, yeah, totally.
I think it always goes back to the Starbucks days when Starbucks first started to populate in Canada, and it was like, I'll take a large coffee. No, you won't. You either say it correctly or you don't get it. Like you need to say it by their terms.
That's the worst.
Yeah.
It's like they'll look at you like you have 4 eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I try to make it as easy as possible. Like on our menu, it's like, it says banh mi, but then in brackets, it's like Vietnamese sandwich. Make it easy for everyone. Let's not, pull any teeth here.
Exactly. Well, no, that's something. So I don't even know if you knew, but when we were building the delivery app, I actually built Hanoi's house, Hanoi House's delivery portion. So I got to know the menu really good. And that's something that always struck me was it's actually a fairly small menu in comparison to other restaurants, but yet you can still satisfy every need. So I can still order something for my 7-year-old, for my wife who's very picky. You can still feed an entire family a selection of food. Yet there's maybe 25 different items on the menu?
It's all like the same, there's only like 4 core categories on the menu, just the proteins change and you can add things and whatnot. I grew up in a Chinese restaurant where the menu was like 200 to 300 items, which is insane, right? Like, how do you memorize what's on there? Even being a server, you can't even memorize everything.
It got to the point where, and again, I'm not familiar with that exact menu, but with Chinese restaurant menus, it's like they'll have 1 through 70, but then they'll go back and add other stuff. So now it's like 3B, 3C. And it's like, okay, now we're getting a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah, welcome to the golden wheel. Number 14 was Cantonese fried noodle. 14A was mixed vegetable noodle.
Yeah, don't get them mixed up.
Don't get them mixed up. Yeah, it was very painful. So I actually did make that mistake in the first round of menus. Yep. I did, section A1 was like this, A2, whatever. Then I just squashed that because I was like, all right, this is getting ridiculous.
Well, you still have to pick your proteins. You still have to pick your options. But people are used to saying, I want it with shrimp. I want it with chicken. It doesn't have to be its own menu item anymore.
No, for sure. But yeah, I wanted to keep the menu small because one, why confuse everyone, the customers and the staff? You want things to be consistent, right? Like the less things that you have and the better quality it is, they're going to get the same thing anyways, right? Like, you just kind of proved my point. You get the same thing every time. And then even if you change it up a little bit, you're not going to change it that much, right? Like,
do you want, as a restaurant owner, I've never been involved in the restaurant industry at all, besides McDonald's when I was 15 years old.
I wish I worked at McDonald's, to be honest.
It was a great experience. Yeah. I learned a lot there. They really, I feel like they hate it nowadays when the original McDonald's employees go back and you're like, I want this, but do this, this, and this. And they're like, I hate you. Like, you get that attitude from them. Like, no. But do you feel like you want people to try their stuff? So I have a friend, he owns Pita Pit on Lansdowne. And he's going to hate me for saying this because I'm not trying to pick on the people that order it, but Chicken Caesar, by far the most popular thing on the menu. I've literally watched him tell people to order something else, and if they don't like it, he'll pay for it. Like, he's like, no,
really?
try something different. It's great you like that, but there's 30 other things on the menu. Try something else. And I've always wondered if that's common in the restaurant industry. Like, no, you come in every week and you order this. Try something else. Let's see if you like something else. Does that ever, when you get your regulars in for the same meal every time, do you ever try to kind of get them on something else?
I don't think that's a bad thing, right? Because when you know what people are going to order, it actually helps with your food costs. You can predict things better. And then you got to ask yourself, why do they want to order that all the time? Why are they ordering that all the time? Yep. Is it because it tastes great? Okay, if it tastes great, then why mess with a good thing? Yep. If you have something that you really want people to try, maybe put it on special. But even really depends on the price. Like, you're going to have to really lower that price to entice someone.
True.
But again, why not just make the full profit on your chicken Caesar wrap? Yep. They're going to spend that money anyways, right?
If you find something that works, and from a business standpoint, it makes complete sense. If you found something that somebody likes, double down on it. Like, keep going.
Exactly. So it's kind of like, who are you trying to satisfy? Are you trying to satisfy yourself?
Yep.
Or the customer, because the customer's happy already. So what do you?
It's exactly it. No, it's definitely interesting to see. Like, now it's made me think while we're sitting here at different restaurants, different menus, and the only time I don't do that, Matt, our producer, has been with me a few times at the bar. I started this thing. I don't know where it came from, but I haven't ordered an actual drink in 2 years, 3 years. What I'll do is I'll just tell the bartender to make me whatever they want. And I have yet to have something I didn't love. I've had so many drinks served to me now that I drink it and I'm like, oh, that's my new favorite drink. And I'll still go back and bartender's choice next time. And what I learned is they're never going to suggest the worst thing on the menu. They're always going to make you what they make best, what their favorite is. And no matter where I am now, I do that, and it's never let me down.
You're a very rare breed because there's a lot of people that will be like, what do you have on tap? And then the server just lists everything off and they just still get Coors Light or Bud Light. So I'm sure all the bartenders all love you.
I get it with beer. I totally understand that if there's 10 beer options, somebody's got their favorite. But when it comes to cocktails, just let somebody else's creativity take over, because most of the time what I find too, and it's been interesting to watch, most of the time they won't even make you something off of their actual menu. They'll make you what their favorite drink is. And the stuff I've got to try as a result of that's amazing. But you kind of mix things up too. I know, was it about a year ago you did a pop-up kitchen for your brother in your restaurant, and then you just did a New Year's one. So I mean, you've got a little bit of that in you too, where it's like, no, we're gonna do Chinese food this New Year's. We're gonna do noodles, ramen noodle type situation with your brother, and that's fun too, because somebody might love your cooking, your restaurant, your atmosphere, your staff. But the idea of changing it up for a random day, it gives somebody an opportunity to try something new again.
It allows me to really engage with customers as well. It also allows me to reach different demographics of people. So for example, I just did Chinese food for Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. We sold out both days. Part of that is also because of my background in Peterborough. But not everyone wants to eat Vietnamese food on those days, right? You can't break tradition.
Yep.
Everyone wants to eat chicken balls and fried rice.
Yep.
December 24th and December 31st. But it allowed me to reach a demographic that normally would not have eaten Vietnamese food. They came into the restaurant, they chatted with us or whatever, and they might come next time to just get a regular menu. Yep. Even just the marketing side of things, right? People were sharing our posts. They didn't know we existed before, and now they do.
Oh, it's huge. I saw it everywhere. And then after the food got delivered or picked up, the posts were everywhere. I was like, why are people taking? And there was like, oh yeah, Hanoi House tonight, their pop-up Chinese kitchen, and but because it was Chinese food everywhere in my wall on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I know it's pretty interesting to see. But those are the fun things. I think going back to kind of the business mentality, you get to have some fun with it. Once you've got things rolling, things on a little bit of an autopilot situation, that's where as a business owner you get to go back to the drawing board and have some fun, do the things you enjoy. I know you and your husband got into the Airbnb. I was on TikTok one day and I'm like, that photo looks, is that Susan? And then all of a sudden it was an Airbnb ad and I was like, this is amazing. Like,
yeah, that video went pretty viral. My husband though does take a lot of credit for it and I don't blame him. He, I made the video clips, but he was like, the music needs to be on point. Yep. It needs to be like with a beat, and then it changes with the beat.
Yep.
Well,
because it kind of became two businesses. Like you've got obviously Hanoi House off to the side, but then you had the Airbnb, which is a business in itself.
Yeah.
And then you're also all of a sudden a TikTok, I don't want to say star, like it wasn't like you're,
it just went,
you're making a living from it. But
I had a couple viral videos.
Yeah.
It was good. It was
She's got a blue check mark now.
Exactly.
Verified. Yeah, it was funny. I went to Costco and people would be like, I saw your TikTok video. And I'm just like, stop.
Well, and it happens a lot. Like with social media nowadays, Erica hated it. Erica's my wife, just it's first episode, so I'll introduce her that way. She hated it. When we first launched, it was like the Examiner, newspapers, Global. She was on everything for a week. And same idea. She'd go in somewhere and they'd be like, oh, you're the woman who's launching. She's like, I just wanted to come here and get, well, it's the start of a pandemic. She's like, I want to get toilet paper. Like she doesn't like that. She doesn't like talking to 50 strangers a day. I love it. I love talking. But once you start to make a little bit of a name for yourself, people start to recognize you, start to be that person. Like you're Susan, but you're also Hanoi House. Yeah. And I could imagine, again, with how many people are passionate about the restaurant, that it probably could get hard for you to go walk through Walmart without having to run into 20 people that want to stop and say hi.
Yeah, I've kind of dealt with that my whole life with the family restaurant, right? Like, my parents and I would be out shopping and someone would come up to us and be like, we love your food. It'd be hilarious if it wasn't us. Like, if they just went to like some Chinese people and we're like, we love your food. And they're just like, we don't live here. Who are you?
We're just visiting.
We're just cottagers. But people start to recognize you and that's kind of what you're known for, right? It's especially being in a small town, you start to create a bit of a brand identity. It doesn't matter how big the town is or whatever, or how big your reach is, people still recognize you and know you for certain things, right? So you're kind of you're like the Y Drive guy now, right? Like I'm the Hanoi House girl and whatever.
Do you feel like that, you mentioned back in the Golden Wheel days, people started to get to know who you were, who your family was, your food, your quality, service, all of that. Did that help you a lot when the first lockdown happened weeks after you launched? Like, did you already have your built-in clientele that not only were like, I like the food. I got to try it, I think, once or twice before the lockdown happened. But so I like the food, but people that like you or your staff or what you're doing are also going to choose to support you. So I remember going into the first lockdown, Matt and I have talked about this leading into these shows and how much of a role that may or may not have played. I feel like there was days where I'd go home. I was lucky enough to still be working for our other company during the entire lockdown. If I had a good day, there was days where I'd go home and I'd say, Erica, don't make dinner tonight. Let's order something. And I feel like part of it was just, you know what? Let's support somebody else. Like if I had a good day, I made some extra money. let's make sure that that restaurant downtown, that restaurant on Lansdowne are taken care of. They've got staff, they've got families to feed. Did you feel a lot of that going into the first lockdown, where the support was more or less just to keep everybody going, not much about I want the food?
Yeah, totally. Like this past Friday, Saturday, both of my locations were busier than if there was dine-in.
Yep. So
that just kind of goes to show you that people weren't just hungry, but they were like making an effort, like a hard effort to get takeout. And I think that says a lot, especially just January, first off. It's the slowest time of the year for most businesses. Yep. And yet we had a Friday, Saturday that was equivalent to like December or, you know, like whatever. Yep. And I don't know if it's a Peterborough thing or a small town thing, but I think it might just be a people thing, right? Like people generally are good and they all have good intentions for the most part, and they just want to see other people succeed, right? With Hanoi House, you were talking about, we have a lot of like fans and people are very passionate about us. A lot of it is because they've been part of our story from the beginning. You know, when we had a setback, they felt that setback as well because they're excited about the restaurant, and then we had to close, and they're upset as well. They haven't been to the restaurant yet.
Mm-hmm. Your story is interesting though, in the sense that you started social media from day one. And whereas if you look, I'm not going to name names because I'm not picking on anyone, but there's a lot of established restaurants, brands in Peterborough that when that first lockdown happened, they then had to switch to, okay, now we need to get our name out there some other way. And to start that late in the game with creating a social media following, to teach yourself how to do it, to try and create a viral video or two, that's harder to do than if you've just been on social media the whole time. And I'm guilty of it. We have 11,000 people on our app. We've got 1,000 on Facebook. That isn't a good thing. And it's because I honestly I don't even have an Instagram account for myself. And I feel like we're lucky that we are essentially locked down and pandemic proof because people still need to get to where they're going. But had I have all of a sudden needed to have a strong social media following, I would have been starting from scratch. Whereas you already had that built in. You already had people sharing your stuff and talking about your food before that happened.
Yeah, social media it's not for everyone, right? And I think I'm just lucky because I'm younger. I did work in the bar scene when I was in Toronto at like nightclubs and stuff. I used to manage in Toronto. And that was part of the game, promoting your nightclub. Hey, everyone, $3 tequila on Thursdays. Like, that has always just been ingrained, you know, in my 20s. I was able to take those skills and transfer it over when I opened my own restaurant. I think it's unfortunate that there's a lot of restaurateurs and business owners that didn't really quite hop on board. Yep. They're really missing out on the online delivery platforms, just the website, I mean. Yep. Social media, Facebook, just putting your name out there and your face out there. It makes a huge difference. It's basically free advertising that they're not using.
You know what's interesting is you mentioned late to the game on the delivery apps. I'll kind of take some of the blame, although obviously you guys make your own decisions. So we were so gung-ho to get the delivery app out. Yourselves and Riley's were the two that we were trying to do everything we could to get it out, get the food delivered, help out in the meantime. And between you guys as well as Old Stone and Hot Bellies, which unfortunately are no longer with us, they were our plan for being kind of the cornerstone, to get people to download the app. We felt if we had Hanoi House, Riley's, Old Stone, and Hot Bellies, people would download the app for that, and then the other restaurants would join as a result. What I found is once you and Riley's, so with you obviously naturally progressed to that point. You have a very desirable delivery food. Riley's was really skeptical about going on, and them and Old Stone and Hot Bellies had some good points. They have a very unique menu, a lot of different options. They wanted to be in control of the product from start to finish. And eventually got to the point where talking with Jim and Melissa at Riley's, it was like, no, you guys got to get on Skip. Like, you have to do something to get your product out there just to keep your guys busy and keep your name out there. I feel like, because you guys did around the same time, I feel like when you guys hit Skip the Dishes, everybody was so tired of the options that were already there that it was a huge, like, it was like, oh my God, Riley's there. Oh my God, Hanoi House is there. And people jumped on it really fast, and it kind of created a bit of a wave for a new round of restaurants to join and become the new go-tos. And as you said, it's not always ideal to order through those apps, but I'm just as guilty as everybody else. If at 9 o'clock at night I'm hungry, it's so easy to open it and kind of scroll through and yep, that's what I'm ordering and go with it. So it was a necessary evil that existed. And it was fun to watch that second round of restaurants come on because it gave so many new options.
It put on a lot of independent restaurants, right? Like you could order Booster Juice or Harvey's or McDonald's, whatever on there, but you couldn't order your mom and pop restaurants. And now you can, and there's even more concepts going up right now. I actually joined because 180 down the road from us on Hunter Street joined. So I was like, if they're on there, I'm going to go on there. And then I talked to Lang and asked him how his experience was. And, it was working out for them. And the nice thing is there's really not really a commitment, you just pay the commission fees. But I only joined Skip the Dishes and not Uber Eats just because of the comparison in percentages. So if someone really wanted to order from delivery from us just from an app, sorry, you got to pick Skip. You can't pick the other one. I don't need to give you 3 different options as DoorDash and whatever. Let's just keep it simple. Also, you get a tablet for every location. Do you know how crazy it is to have so many tablets running around on your,
Yep, no, 100%.
I do not want to do that to my staff. They already deal with enough.
That was one of the things we ran into with it, was not wanting to be an additional option. It was great for the ones that only wanted one service, the ones who had their built-in clientele. But for the ones that were already on Skip, Uber Eats, DoorDash, all of those combined, we didn't want to be the fourth person into the game, because you're right, it just gets overwhelming, especially when a lot of restaurants aren't the owners and managers doing all of the work. A lot of the bigger restaurants are just part-time staff, and it's a lot for them to handle when they've got 4 different companies coming in to pick up food. So yeah, no, we skipped out on it there, no pun intended, but we're actually looking at getting back into it just through an opportunity we have with our Alberta expansion. So it'll be fun to see that happen. And I think beyond the pandemic, beyond the lockdown, there's a huge opportunity for restaurants to save a lot of money. The 25% is a little bit ridiculous. The one thing I will say, just because the point of the small business talk and giving people the insight isn't just around restaurants, that 25% does cover some expenses that people overlook when they're planning their business. So it does cover your 3% for your credit card fees, but it also covers your marketing. For guys that have built-in clientele like yourselves, that's not as big of an advantage, but like you mentioned, the small mom and pops that people have never heard of, it's their marketing costs. It's 20 to 22% for new clientele is not a horrible cost originally. Then the game is to try and get them to switch over and come in and see you or order directly from you after that.
So my rebuttal to that would be, it's not a terrible cost to pay to acquire a new customer. However, what happens with Skip or any of these other platforms, I don't know, is that they also target your returning customers as well. So I have a very loyal following. So when you type in Hanoi House on Google, you're going to try and find my website, right? Obviously. But Skip will pay for advertising to be above me on the Google search engine. So you're naturally going to click the Skip link and then order my same food. When you were already looking me up on Google, and all of a sudden I have to pay this fee because you just clicked a different link. So I'm lucky. I have really awesome customers. I'm like, hey guys, order through our website. Don't order through Skip. This is what happens. And on Friday night, I think we only had, at Lansdowne, I think we only had 1 Skip order, and everything else was through our website. Just because people are engaged, they get it. I'm very grateful, obviously.
Well, and that's a huge, that was our entire game plan going into our delivery app, and then YDrive as a whole, as well as a rideshare program. You don't have to be the cheapest. You just have to have the best service, and people will come back. The local aspect for YDrive has been huge for us. I'm really curious to go into our next market. We have local advantage as well because our partners are local to Grand Prairie, Alberta. But after that, it's all new cities for us, whether it's Huntsville or it's Fort Mac or any of those places we plan to go. And I'm curious to see what it's going to be like without that home field advantage, without that, oh my God, those are our neighbors, let's support them mentality. But yeah, the local feeling in Peterborough is huge. It's almost hard to explain how much people here want to support their friends, their family, friends of friends, and local businesses.
Well, everyone went to high school with someone, and everyone knows each other through sports or working somewhere. There's a guy that I met recently through the restaurant. He recently moved to Peterborough, just lives in the suburbs in the West End. And he orders food from me. He actually gets plumbing work done by my husband. So he's gotten to know us pretty well, but he was like, everyone here knows each other. It's so weird. He just because he came from Toronto or the GTA area. And to him, it was just so eerie how everyone is kind of connected.
It was when we launched the DD service before Y Drive. It was Young's designated driving service. My wife's last name is Young. And it was insane how many times do you know so-and-so? Do you know so-and-so? Are you related to this guy, this girl? And she's like, no. She's like, I'm not related to any other Young in Peterborough at all. She's lived her entire life, but she's not related to another single Young in town. I bet you we got half of our initial clientele by being Youngs. People just wanted to support it. We did probably a quarter of our rides for the first 6 months were to Ennismore. Just because of the Young name. That's
pretty funny.
It was pretty cool to see. And then we did intentionally switch it to Y Drive to get away from that a little bit. But yeah, it was.
You're like, I don't want to go to Ennismore all the time.
Exactly. No, we go there quite often still.
It's so far.
But yeah, no, it was fun to see. And we've never experienced Peterborough open. We've never experienced 2 a.m. bar rushes. We've never. It's gonna be fun to see it happen. Now,
someday.
Yeah, exactly. We're unique, and I'm not trying to downplay the struggle that everybody else had. Ours was the opposite. We got lucky that we launched in a time when we launched on November 26th of last year, or a year and 2 months ago. We launched where bars were closed. They were about to open back up. Restaurants were open, but you couldn't go to like a nightclub till 2 a.m. Schools were still out, I believe. So we launched in a very soft market, and that allowed us to keep up. We were able to build that clientele because when we launched, we were already 4,500 people on our app just from the word of mouth leading up to it. And then now we're at about 11,000. But had we have just gone out of the gate with 11,000 people, we would have been screwed. There's no way we could have kept up.
Now I'm going to turn the question period back to you.
Okay.
Are you interested to see what's going to happen when the bars do open up? Because your demographic is going to change and your drivers are going to have to put up with a very different type of clientele.
So we have had them for a bit. Like we had the bar rushes even when it was 10 p.m. and then they were open late for a bit there. Though that clientele is still fun. Yeah, you're putting a few throw-out bags in the cars just in case. We've been lucky, no incidents. But yeah, like we had the drunk golfers and we had the bar rushes and stuff like that over the last little bit. And it's different drivers. It's a different mentality. We have our full-timers that work 40 hours during the week, 50 hours. They love that. They love their regular clients to and from work. But then we have our guys that love going out on Friday and Saturday nights, and they can make good money. Like we've got drivers that come out. New Year's, I had one guy. He logged on for 6 hours, made $450.
Yeah,
and he's like, "This is amazing." And so luckily we had New Year's. New Year's was good for our drivers. But again, had all of the bars been open till 2 a.m., he would have been toast.
Who would know, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the thing with us. Even with Friday, Saturdays in the summer, you should be opening later, but we're closing at like 9 p.m., 10 p.m. because there's nothing going on. So, we missed out on Hootenanny like 2 summers in a row now. We were so excited for that because it's right in front of our restaurant. And to this day, we've never experienced it, but,
It makes me nervous too. As far as how much community involvement you can have when you're not sure what 2 months from now is going to look like. So for people like the DBIA to put Hootenanny on, it's a lot of risk if they don't know what this summer, they've got to start planning that now if they're going to do it this summer and they don't know what this summer is going to look like. I know we just wrote a very big check to become involved with ECFC and we're super excited about it. I don't know what this summer is going to look like for sports gatherings of 1,500, 2,000 fans in one area. Who knows? And it really makes it hard as a business owner to project, in your case, food and locations and all that. But even from a marketing standpoint, you don't know what 2 months from now is going to look like, let alone 6 months from now.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. With COVID, it's really shown that there's a lot of unpredictability, right? In normal business times, there can be like periods of uncertainty too. I think we're just facing really extremes right now, very, very highs and very, very lows. But at the end of the day, I think to be successful, you still kind of have to use the same core fundamentals, right? Like how to keep your staff happy and keep your customers happy. Like that doesn't change, with even though things are unpredictable. As long as you're still sticking to your core beliefs and your principles, I think that's why we've done okay to this point and been able to expand and keep our staff because we believe in something and we're sticking to it.
I agree. And it's it's interesting to see that mentality because we have the same issue between Christmas and New Year's. Obviously, everything locked back down. They announced kids weren't going back to school, which means a lot of parents aren't going back to work. We completely slowed down. It was the slowest week we'd had in probably 8 months. No, we were still doing a couple hundred rides a day, but we weren't doing 300, 400 rides a day. And that's where we had to reevaluate. And I'm pretty sure, as far as all of the rideshare companies in Canada, the big ones and the small ones, we were probably the only ones that took the approach we took. And we just said to ourselves, you know what? Up the percentage for the drivers, lower the rates for the passengers. We lowered our rates as far as we could. We raised the percentage for the drivers as far as we could. And we looked at it as, if we can keep every customer and every driver through the slowest point of the year, through a lockdown, then coming out of that lockdown is going to be 10 times easier.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm in the same boat as you. Even with my restaurant right now, I've got all my staff still employed. I didn't lay anyone off. I'm not making money. I'm straight up not making any money. I don't even take a paycheck right now. But I'm keeping everyone working, and I'm keeping all my great staff, and I'm still feeding customers and giving them great deals and opportunities to come support. Right now, I think with everyone, it's just about surviving and getting through this. And that's kind of the most you can hope for at this point.
I think a lot of people underestimate how important the staff is. So people that have never owned a business of any sort, they look at it and go, oh, you could just rehire.
Yeah,
look at what happened to most restaurants. Like, I mean,
it's called the Great Resignation.
Yeah, exactly. Like there was Tim Hortons that weren't open till 11 p.m. anymore because they couldn't staff the place. And yeah, keeping staff is important nowadays. We have a large cost per driver that we bring on. You have your marketing cost to get them, but then you still have licensing and training and vehicle safeties and all that. I don't want our drivers to wander off and do something else because yes, in the high times, they know how much they can make and they're extremely happy. But I mean, these guys still have bills to pay, rent, mortgages, kids to feed. They have to do that this week too, even if it's slower than it would normally be. So
yeah, I think the mentality's changed a little bit. Everyone used to think people were just replaceable. Unfortunately, that's not really the case anymore, right? And
we had a driver. I was a little bit lenient on some, like every business has employee issues, and I was being really lenient on a few things, again, just to keep everybody happy. And I had a driver come to me. He used to work for a taxi company, and he actually, and he admitted it, he was one of the people I was frustrated with. But he still came to me, he goes, stop being nice. Like, start being an asshole. He goes, tell them off. Get rid of them. He said, a driver is a lot easier to replace than a customer. And I thought about it, and I agree with him that we had to start standing our ground. But I also was like, no, it's not. Like, there was, from the day we launched until, not exaggerating, 4 weeks ago, we did no advertising to get customers. Everything was about getting drivers. And it backfired every time because if I put an ad up for drivers, then people would see that and be like, we have a rideshare program in Peterborough. And then they download the app and use it. So for every driver we were hiring, we were still getting another 500 customers. And it was like, this is not going, like, we need drivers to keep up with the demand. And the way I've looked at it, and it was something I was thinking about, again, for your situation, 3 weeks in, everything shut down. This is like the biggest test. And the fun part to look at is the ones who make it out, which obviously you're doing well enough that with 2 restaurants and that you're going to be fine to get through, even if it's not fun to do. And so are we. And hopefully everybody can make it out the other side. But once you've passed this test, once you've gone through what we've all gone through for the last year and a half and are going to go through for a little bit longer, I mean, it's not going to be easy, but it'll be smoother sailing moving forward. Like, you shouldn't in your lifetime have a battle like this pandemic has caused for small business.
I agree. Yeah. Even at the beginning of this, what is this? This is the 4th lockdown. I lost track.
Fourth or
fifth? Like, I don't know. There's debate on that.
3 anyways.
I think it's the 4th. But I was laughing to myself. I'm like, if we get out of this, like, we make it out of this, we deserve a medal. I don't even care if it's a stupid looking medal. Someone just like draws, just draws something a little, for me, like a little star. I deserve like just some kind of like, hey, good job. You did it.
Survived the lockdowns of 2020,
like
2021. Yeah.
Like, I just want a gold star. That's all I want. I don't care about money. I just want the acknowledgement that I survived. And, you know, I'm still in one piece and I'm still kind of sane. And
put like ramen noodles on the menu, just ramen noodles with a bit of seasoning, and call it like the lockdown special. Like, still serve it 20 years from now. Like, no, this is what we had to eat as we were going through the lockdown.
This is what I ate, spam.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's going to be interesting. And I think that's why we wanted to put this podcast together now, is there's so many people out there that I think are terrified to start a business. And every year you need X number of people in a community like ours to start something new, whether it's a restaurant, a retail store, a service, whatever. You're gonna run out of electricians when they retire and new ones don't start because they're scared to do it in a pandemic. And I think that's our goal for this entire podcast moving forward, is to go over every aspect of it. I know for you said you planned it for a year. It was basically your life led to you opening your own restaurant about a food you were passionate about. For me, it was completely opposite. Our manufacturing company was started at 2:00 in the morning. My wife was sleeping. I hated who I worked for. His checks weren't clearing, so I wasn't getting paid. And I actually took my wife's OSAP payment. Hopefully they don't listen to this podcast. She signed up to go to school. She had that couple $1,000s left from OSAP and bought a website, paired up with a manufacturer, did everything I needed to do. At 2:00 in the morning, she woke up and we had a business and made her first sale that afternoon. So there's two sides to it. You can be sporadic. You can just jump the gun and do something, or you can plan it for a while. But either way, if you've got that itch, it's not going to go away till you scratch it. If you want to be self-employed and want to try, the worst that happens is you're back where you started from. I don't suggest anyone goes and mortgages their house and finances everything and puts everything into what they're doing. But if you want to start a restaurant and you think it's going to cost, what does a restaurant cost? $50,000 to start?
Yeah, $50,000 if you're starting small. Yep. and it goes upwards for sure from there.
Yep, but save up. Eventually you'll get there and take the chance, because the worst that's going to happen is you save $10,000 a year for 5 years. You start your first business. You fall on your ass. You're either not good at running a business or the business wasn't the right move.
Yeah. As long as you know, right? Like, even when I pre-planning the restaurant, you read all the business books out there. You can read all the self-help books you want. I have a ton of these books, right? None of them are going to be like, yep, now once you've read this, you can open your own restaurant. No. It doesn't work like that. Like, you'll never actually be ready. And I still don't know everything that I need to know. There's a lot of things I'm very unaware of and I'm still learning. Yep. And a lot of people I often get asked, right? Like, what do I need to start my own restaurant? How do I get started? I want to start my own business. A lot of it is you need to take the first step, and that's like just admitting that, like, this is what you want to do. Yep. And you need to start somewhere, right?
The hard part, I think, because 7 years ago when we started that company, I knew nothing. My parents had owned stuff growing up, like disc jockey companies, and one was a realtor and stuff like that. And it's easy to look back and say, oh, I learned so much from them. But unless you're managing the books, unless you're doing the marketing, you're not actually learning anything. You're just learning the work ethic, which is important, but it's not going to get you to where you need to be. What I've noticed, and the reason we decided to do something like this, now that I have 3 businesses, now that I am in that circle in Peterborough, and my conversations are now with people like Neil from formerly from Studio PTBO, or talking to other business owners in the mall, or knowing most of the restaurant owners, I learn a lot from them. But what I realized is, where were these people before I started a business? Like, if I had that information in my first 3 years, I would have been so much better off. Like knowing how to start, what to do, who to contact, all of those things. Y Drive was fun to launch because I learned about things like press releases. So many people start a business and don't know that you can just write the newspaper and be like, hey, we're opening on such and such a day. This is who we are. And bam, you'll be on the second page. And so those are things I'm hoping we can teach people without charging them $59 for a book, and without charging for a course or taking a cut. Having those conversations to push people to take that chance, because there isn't really a lot on the line. Being broke isn't the end of the world, especially today when getting a job is as easy as walking out and wanting to work. So if you fall on your ass, you got something to fall back on.
Yeah, it's funny you can talk about talking to other business owners. Yep. I think a lot of people don't realize that they actually have a lot of knowledge, and they don't even know that they do, right? Yep. So if you went up to Jim from Riley's and you're like, hey, can you teach me about opening a restaurant? He'd be like, oh, what do I really know? I'm just whatever. Like even when people ask to talk to me, like you asking me to be here, I'm like, I don't really know what you want to know, but I guess I know some things.
It's sometimes just showing people that it's knowing when you started yours, taking away what you learned working for your family business, but being your own owner, being the owner of a restaurant. You had no idea going into the first one. I had no idea what I was doing going into our first business. And It's it's a great opportunity to say congratulations, because it's kind of like parenting. Nobody knows what they're getting into a month before that kid's born. Yet somehow everybody still figures it out. It's very rare that somebody's like, I just can't do this.
Yeah.
Like, I tried to cook. I haven't cooked in so long. I'm fortunate that my wife cooks every meal. And yesterday was her birthday. And I literally, this is so embarrassing, I screwed up a chef's plate box last night.
Love
like
it.
to the point where we couldn't eat it.
Love
we
it.
just ordered food. And what I realized is, you don't need to know everything to go into it. She's no more knowledgeable. It's just because she cooks every night. She got to that point.
Yeah.
If you just keep pushing forward and you keep taking the chance and you keep learning as you go, you're going to get there. But it is also extremely helpful to learn stuff from other people. It was actually Paul Bennett was somebody as well, where we went and looked at, before we got the office we're sitting in, we went and looked at an office, and he swung by. It was one of his properties, and so he took the time to come down and meet with us, and more of the conversation was about why driving him and small business. It wasn't so much about the property, and I really wish it would have been the right property for us, because he's a super...
Paul's awesome. He's my landlord downtown.
Exactly.
So.
He's so supportive of every small business, whether you rent your space from him or not. And he said something to me, because I had all these big dreams, and we're fortunate enough that our money came from other businesses. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, all right, I want to glass this in, I want to do this, I want to do this for the flooring. And he's like, why? He's like, just get in here and start working. He's like, the point of owning a business isn't to have the flashiest office or to have this done or this done. And this is a building he owns. If I went in there and spent $80,000 to do a complete inside remodel, he makes $80,000.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And he's still like, no, man. He's like, just put a table in the middle and get to work.
Yep.
And that really resonated with me, where it was like, all right,
things don't need to be fancy, like the restaurant at Lansdowne. It's pretty bare. I don't have the money to make it the way I wanted to. Slowly, I'm getting there. When I have a little bit more money, I'll paint this, I'll buy this picture frame, blah, blah, blah. But like, if you're just like outfit the business, the restaurant the way you want it, and you don't even have customers, what's the point?
Yep.
Right. So like, and that's why I feel like people like my story, because I actually just recently posted 3 different color shades of what to paint the restaurant.
Yep.
And like, so many people responded to me in the DMs being like, yeah, sage, go with sage and whatever. And
Yep.
I'm going to go with sage because it's the best.
Heard it here first.
Yeah, you heard it here first, everyone. But people are part of the story.
You just lost every customer that voted for something
I know.
else. They're like,
I'm
no,
sorry,
I'm done with
people.
her.
I'm sorry.
Done with her.
But really, it doesn't matter. Even my menus changed over time. Like I didn't really. It's funny when I look at the first edition of the menu. I should just frame it now, right? Like you go from where you are to where you are now. Such a big change, and you just have to be willing to roll with the punches. Take feedback.
You said it too, though, that you're passionate about the food you make, and that's why you went to Vietnamese food. And I think that was a mind-blowing statement you made earlier, because I didn't even know that you're not Vietnamese.
Yeah.
And I think people just assume
And I don't advertise that I am. That's the best
Yep.
part. As soon as a customer comes in,
Yep.
and they try to speak to me in Vietnamese or whatever or they even slightly assume, I'm like, whoa, let me just stop you there.
Yep.
Let me just give you a 10-second spiel.
Or respond in Chinese.
Yeah. They wouldn't know. They wouldn't,
Yeah.
But I give them a 10-second spiel about how I'm not Chinese, but why I have a
Not Vietnamese.
Vietnamese restaurant, right?
Yeah.
I do have Vietnamese staff. I'm very lucky that I've got, some experts in the house, but yeah, I'm not pretending to be something that I'm not. I just happen to have a really strong passion for it. And I do think about my brand a lot and what it really means. And, a lot of it has to do with the fact that I'm a minority growing up in Peterborough. Mm-hmm. And that is kind of what the brand is. It's about bringing cultural diversity to Peterborough just through Vietnamese food.
Exactly. Well, and where I was going with that is just a question I have to a restaurant owner. Can somebody... And when I say own, I don't, obviously somebody with way too much money can buy whatever they want and let somebody else run it. But can someone who's not passionate about the food they serve run a restaurant?
They can, but it might not last very long.
Fair answer, yeah. Fair.
And also the people that below you will also see through that, right?
Yep.
So there's gonna be so many holes in the system, right? Your managers know you don't care. They're not gonna put out food that's good. People just want to collect a paycheck. Those are the types of people you're gonna find. So
I think the effort comes from the passion. Like I've somehow, and this is a really good statement because you have 2 locations. Somehow I've never still been in Hanoi House where you're not there. And that says a lot. Like somehow you are still always at both locations. You don't have to be. your staff is more than when we did deliveries for you guys, your staff is more than capable of watching the store while you're not there.
Oh yeah, it runs on its own.
But you still force yourself to be there.
Yeah, that's a bit of a personal problem, to be honest. It's not a micromanaging problem, because I could just hide somewhere and just be there. I have just no life, so I actually.
Well, that's going to change soon. So
yeah, it's going to change very soon, actually. But I try to take the morning. I actually tried to take the day off. Today's my day off, so.
Okay. Sorry
you
for
should be very lucky.
I'm grateful. Very grateful.
Took the day off. My dog was actually loaded up in the car. We were going to go for a hike. You know, it was like the first like normal person thing that I was going to do. As we're in the car, that St. Bernard's loaded in the back seat, I get a text being like, hey, it's busy. Can you come help? And I never get that message. It's like a Wednesday.
Yep.
It's like locked down, but we're busy because of all the promotions that we've got going on. And then I had to like take the poor St. Bernard out, put him back in the house,
man.
and you know, and I rushed to the restaurant. But that's part of being a business owner. But let's be serious. I actually had to try to like make plans today. So
yep. No, it's hard. So we used to travel a lot, and that was back when our business didn't need us 24/7. It was essentially sell a product when you felt like it, and then other people would make it. We haven't been able to travel since Y-Drive launched because of the pandemic. I'm really curious how it's going to be to step away. It's odd for me right now, if we're here for an hour with the microphones on, it's odd for me to not check our numbers.
we should check if we have any notifications after this.
Yeah, 100%. And but it's weird not to. Like, I'm constantly logging in on my phone to see how many rides we've done, who's in rides, which customers are using us, where they're going. It's going to be weird to go away. And I love cruises. And anyone who's been on a cruise knows you lose reception really fast. And
isn't there Wi-Fi though?
Yeah, you ever paid for it?
No, I've never been on a cruise. So
if you get the Wi-Fi, it's extremely slow.
I see.
If you get the cell phone service, then it's like it's roaming to a whole nother level. Like if you get an email while you're on the cell phone service,
like a $5 email.
Oh, more than that. Like it's made for like someone to notify your grandma's dead. Like it's expensive, really expensive. So the Wi-Fi is good, and some cruises are better. You can watch Netflix, stuff like that. But yeah, you can't rely on it. Our honeymoon was an Alaskan cruise, and that was, we had Young's running, but not Y-Drive. And it was hard. Like, it was checking in with people and seeing how things were going was like, I think I have reception right now, and try to do it really quick. Or when you get to port for the day, you'd quickly try to get a half an hour work done before you went to leave to do your excursions for the day. But I'm curious to see how it'll be, because I'm so excited to travel again. Yet I'm terrified at the thought of, okay, guys, we'll see you in 2 weeks. And by the way, you can't reach us.
I see. My mentality is a little bit different. I'm very like, well, you're going to have to get thrown in the fire to figure it out. Because right now I do have managers and they know how to problem solve, but they don't know how to problem solve without me saving them. Right. So like they can try to solve the problem, but I will still fix whatever needs to be fixed, because people will still be like, I want to talk to the owner.
Yep.
Because you're always going to get people like that, right?
Well, especially in your shoes, where people know
they know
owner.
who I am, right? And
No,
it's like,
exactly.
But there's going to be a day that I'm not available, and they're going to have to figure it out without me. So
see, I'm very good at delegating now. I'll say that. Anyone under me will absolutely detest that I said that.
They're either like shaking their heads right now, or they're.
But it's like, and it's probably my fault, because it's probably as a result of me not liking what they chose to do and making that known. But they'll go and solve the problem, and then they'll bring the solution to me. And so I'm really still not able to be hands off. They'll still come to me and say, hey, what do you think about this? Or can I put this out? Or can I post this? And once that's taken away, once you're unreachable, then all of a sudden they have to decide, is Susan going to like it if I post this to Facebook right now? Or should I just play it safe and not do it? And
yeah, you basically need to find people that kind of align with your brand, right? Yep. Like when you hire people, they need to kind of have almost similar views as you. Like if you think something's a little bit touchy, with COVID, it's been really hard, right? Like everything's so political now, and we live in a very different time.
I've got 47 drivers out there right now that every one of them has a different opinion on vaccines, masks, politics, American politics, everything.
It's touchy.
And we've been really fortunate. We actually haven't had an incident that required us to get involved, but that's part of our training is like, you know what, just Tell them you don't want to talk about it, or just agree with whatever they're saying and let them get out of the car. Because as much as we appreciate our clients, they're there for our drivers to make money. And so that's kind of how I say it to the drivers. Like, listen, if so-and-so doesn't agree with you on mask policy, bottom line is you all have to wear masks anyway. It's the law. So you're all wearing masks. If they don't agree with your opinion on masks, who cares? Do the ride and make the $10, or don't do the ride and someone else will make the $10. And we've been fortunate, but it actually blows my mind looking back that we haven't had any incidents of arguments or people mad or anything like that. Because we're fortunate, but fortunate can also be a bit of a headache. We have every demographic. We've got every culture, every background, every opinion working for us. And not only have they all been great with the customers, but they've also all been great in a 47-person group chat. And that
is amazing.
I have a 5-person group chat with 4 of my best friends, and it doesn't go as smoothly as our company group chat, which is kind of amazing.
It gets out of hand really fast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But no, it's
the culture that you're putting out there, though, right? Like, it starts with you.
Yep.
You know, whenever something goes wrong, I blame myself. I'm always the first person I blame, because if someone did something wrong, I'll be like, why did that happen? And what could I have done to prevent that from happening? Or how was I involved in that, right? Like, I never blame someone for an action that they took, because I'm involved in some way. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the same with your culture and your business too, right? Like, why is it that people don't, yip yap to each other in your group chat? Because you've set the tone for how it is.
Oh, I've had people message me to call me a jerk. They just don't say it to each other. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think it's creating a positive atmosphere. There was a period of time there where things weren't positive as we started to go into lockdowns. Things started to slow down. It also happened to be when we hired the most amount of drivers we've ever had. So now there was a little bit of resentment that you had these veteran drivers who were used to making X number of dollars a day, and it's now being split up more among everybody. And you had to work hard to get that positivity back and get everybody back on the same page. And luckily we were able to do that very quick without it being an issue. But obviously, rolling the dice, eventually you're going to get snake eyes at some point, and we have to prepare for that. We have to prepare for the day where a customer isn't going to agree with us, or a driver's not going to agree, and that's just part of running a business. I've never had employees until this. My wife ran Rexall Pharmacy and had a ton of employees. She's done it in multiple provinces. I've run businesses that I was the only person. This was a game changer, having to manage 50 people at once.
It's having people work together is such a different dynamic. I come from a sports background, so I understand the idea of teams and what it takes to be successful. But when it's a work environment and people are getting paid, it's definitely very different.
Yep.
Especially now,
once they get hungry. Once that paycheck starts to get a little bit smaller than it was last week, then all of a sudden friendships are off. And we've been fortunate. But that's also on us to step up. We stepped up and said, no, you know what? We don't need, similar to yourself, we don't need to take a paycheck this week. So kind of spread that wealth out amongst the employees. And they still have to work for it. They just get a higher percentage. And that allows the ones that are willing to still go get in the car and drive for 10 hours are still going to make a few $100. The ones that aren't, their paychecks are going to dry up. But that's now their responsibility, not ours.
Yeah, it's hard because you want to keep everyone happy at the same time, but there are just certain conditions that you need to kind of roll with for the time being until, just like this right now, like we're a little bit slower than obviously with no dine-in, but like, it's not going to be forever. You're just going to have to tough it out just for a few weeks. I'm air quotes.
Yeah, 2 weeks to curb the
flatten the curve. Yeah,
flatten the curve.
2 years later.
Yeah,
but it's a team effort at the end of the day, right?
Do we celebrate the 2-year mark? Like, that's coming up
I
soon.
know.
Like a month and a half
What should we do?
I don't know. I remember last year at the 1 year mark, it was a weird feeling that it's been a year.
Well, I think it was, what was the date again? I think it was March 16th.
Because I was really sick right before it.
It was March 12th because I remember the NBA game. I was out at a wing night when it happened. And then, or it was March 11th because the Friday was Friday the 13th. And I made a joke saying, this should have just happened on Friday the 13th.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that would have been.
I don't want to celebrate it.
I know. It'd be kind of funny, but like really sad at the same time. Because, I mean, people did die, right? Like it's a really crappy period in our human history. Like
it is. There's a lot of negativity, whether it's businesses, health, death, all of that. that I think gets forgotten really fast because everybody does resort back to either they're doing well and thankful for it, or they're not doing well, and then obviously their focus is on themselves. It's very hard to look back, and I think we've also been a little bit isolated here in Peterborough. Like I've known 2 people to pass away from quote unquote COVID in terms of that was what was put down and formally, but neither of them were from Peterborough. Like one was down in the States and one was from closer to Toronto, and I think we haven't really seen in Peterborough the pandemic in the way that other places have.
Yeah, so it's interesting. If you talk to actually other small business owners that are minorities, like have family in different countries and stuff, lower income countries and whatnot, they can tell you very different things, right? Because they're so connected to places like, Asia and Mexico and whatever. Their experiences are complete opposite of.
It's I don't say amazing because that's a positive term, but part of our development team is in Vietnam, and to hear some of the stuff that they've had to go through in terms of lockdowns and enforcement and stuff like that is absolutely insane. But it's what they felt was necessary because they also live in a place where you don't have an acre of property between you and your neighbor. So if there's 14 people within a very close proximity, and unfortunately, it's going to spread a lot faster, so they have to take it. I don't want to say more serious. I think it's been taken pretty serious in Ontario, but they have to take those extra precautions. And I don't think Vietnam's gone out of lockdown for much of the pandemic. Like
I don't think so either.
Yeah. And it's become their new reality. Like they all work from home. They all enjoy what they're doing still. It's just become their new way of life until things start to straighten out. But
well, what's interesting is one of my Vietnamese staff, I actually asked, why do you like Canada better than Vietnam? And, and a lot of people will be surprised to hear this, but they say the government actually cares more about people here than in Vietnam because, like, you're kind of left to fend for yourself there. Whereas here, we've got a lot of programs. And I understand, things like ODSP is not enough money or welfare programs, not enough money, but, like, it's much better than in other countries in comparison, right? So it's perspective, I guess.
I think I have some friends. Actually, one of our partners at West for Y Drive that's going to be leading things out there. He's an immigrant as well. He came here when he was a lot younger, his entire family, and they built themselves up. Like obviously, they started like anyone else with nothing. They got some government assistance, and then they kind of built up from there. They've got a family business that's been around close to 20 years. Does absolutely amazing. They actually, and as a restaurant owner, you'd love this. So in Grand Prairie, same population as here, college, all that kind of stuff. They've got a delivery service there that's been there for 18 years. They destroy Skip the Dishes. Like
wow.
Skip the Dishes gets rocked by them every day. No app. Their app is actually coming out in the next week or two, but for the last 2 years, they've walked all over Skip the Dishes there. The restaurants all have partnerships with them, retail stores, all that kind of stuff. So it can be done. It's just a matter of the level of service and getting that community behind you. But you talk to them about Canada, and I don't want to say it's funny, but it is a little bit ironic that if you go into a group of people and you say F this country or F our government or any of that kind of stuff, it's actually the people who weren't born here that are going to quickly step up and be like, no, this is an amazing place to be. Yeah, it's because they've seen the flip side.
Well, my dad, he escaped communist China. Like he doesn't talk about it much because it's very like typical Asian dad. Like, you ask him a question and he just kind of short answer, like, don't worry about it.
Yep.
Right. But, from what I gather from, pieces of what he's told me is like, he was like chased down by people with guns and had to swim like to escape, and siblings passed away in the escape. Like I said, I don't know the full story, but like it is very different in these other places. And
I had one of those moments because I'm Canadian. My ancestors have been Canadian for generations, and so I didn't get those stories growing up. I won't name names or go into details because I don't want to give anything away that he doesn't want to say. But I had somebody in my office the other day and was talking to him about his experience, and he was talking about immigration and being chased down and coyotes being sent to get relatives and stuff like that. And I was like, that's crazy. And then I realized in my head, I'm like, this is already like, again, I don't want it to sound like a positive spin on the word amazing, but this is already an amazing story. Like I'm already like into this story and wanting to know more. And then it dawned on me, it's not a movie, it's not a book, it wasn't 2 generations ago. This was him. Like he came here doing that, and it was like, holy crap, like everybody feels so separated from the things that we learned in school or heard about, and then you start to talk to people, and what's amazing to see, to kind of spin it back in and go full circle and kind of wrap stuff up there, a lot of the people with those stories are the ones that end up opening successful businesses, or the ones that end up taking chances. They've seen the worst. Now it's their chance to go out and chase the dream, rather than, I can get this job, it pays me $70,000 a year, I'm going to do it for the rest of my life, I get a pension, I'll retire and die. It's the people that have, quote unquote, hit rock bottom or seen the worst or come here with nothing, that are all of a sudden like, there's an opportunity here and I'm going to run and grab it. And
yeah, sometimes I'm a little bit jealous of my parents in a way. Like, they faced such a different struggle from, living in China and stuff like that. And that drive, I don't have that same drive, right? It's like, I'm hardworking, don't get me wrong, I'm ambitious, but like, it's not the same. Like, until you've had to eat like dirt, like
the contrast isn't there. Like, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but you're working your butt off, taking chances to go from middle class to middle class.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
Whereas you go back to the people who brought us here, whether it's a generation ago or 10 generations ago, they had to actually make something. They had to go from 0 to, whether they only got to 70 or to 100, they had to make progress. Yeah. Whereas we have the opportunity to do what we're passionate about. You didn't get into Vietnamese food so you could make $10 million next year. You got into it because you love it and it'll give you good opportunities in life. And I think I chased that dream. When I started our first business, it was because I wanted to buy this. Like, I was like the kid. I wanted to buy this car. I wanted to move to this area. I wanted to travel to these places. I got into it for the wrong reasons. I got into it because I wanted the end result. And what Y Drive taught me was I wanted to do something where it can make a difference. And whether that's offering Vietnamese food to a community that doesn't have Vietnamese food at that level, or a service like ours that nobody else had before, or when we start getting accountants in, or we start getting retail stores in. Mark is a good friend of ours who will hopefully one day be on the show, opening up basically a hat store, but a sports memorabilia store. That's not something I'd ever wake up in the morning and try to do, but it's what he's passionate about, and now Peterborough has that. Up until now, you can only order something through Lids, or you can only
that like Capital?
Yeah, the Capital, downtown. And so shout out to Mark. Now you have to come on, Mark, because we shout out the store. But the Capital is not something, and I'm going to get to my last question as we wrap up here, but the Capital is not something where you would wake up in the morning and say, I want to do this, or I'd want to do it. But it's what he's passionate about. There's a market for it. And now, because he took that chance, Peterborough has a place where you can go and get the products that he has and talk to somebody who's knowledgeable and passionate about it, which sometimes, I've bought 3 or 4 hats off him. He's not even open yet, because I enjoy going in there and joking around with them and talking to them. And while I'm there, I see a hat I like and I take it. And I think that's something that Peterborough is really good at, is you almost find yourself in places where you're there for that reason. You're there for the person, not necessarily the product.
100%.
So I have a question for you. I'm going to try to ask this to everybody. If it goes well, maybe your answer will be horrible. I never ask this question again anymore.
Just like cut it out.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah, you could mark that. We could
setting the marker.
Yeah, we could cut this off, and that could be the end. So you have what you're passionate about.
Yep.
So this doesn't have to be something you're going to do in your lifetime.
Okay.
If it is something you're going to plan on doing, maybe don't say it, because then someone will knock off your idea.
Yeah.
In your opinion, living in Peterborough, what we do and don't have, what is something that Peterborough still needs? What is something our community is lacking, whether it's a service, a product, a store, something?
Well, now if I tell you, someone's going to steal my... No, I'm just kidding.
We're all busy enough. We can't take it.
I know, seriously. Well, because I'm in the food industry, there's just still not enough diversity in food, right? Like, I lived in Toronto for 10 years, went to university there and stuff. You could walk 1 kilometer in every direction and get every kind of food from anywhere in the world. And we don't have that here in Peterborough. Not yet. Like, it's getting a lot better.
Yep.
But I think, you're going to see this anyways, because as the people from GTA start to move outwards here, based on affordability, you're going to see food becoming more diverse and more like niche kind of cuisines. And that's, for me, I'd love to get into that. If I had more. Someone actually just asked me the other day, they're like, oh, what do you want to open next? I was like, well, if I had money, I would open this. There's
10 things I do if I could afford it.
Yeah, if I had money in my bank account, I would do this. But
I've already got enough restaurants where I have employees to pay and not make any money.
Yeah, I really enjoy running a nonprofit right now.
The tax breaks are great. No, I'm in the same page. It's going to get hard for me because I'm going to try and respond with something of my own each time.
I was going to say, are you going to have a different answer every time?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I'm gonna have the same answer until somebody does it. We need donaires.
Yeah, I hear people say that.
We are missing that. I actually was really disappointed, and I really hate that I'm going to almost throw somebody under the bus, and I don't mean to. I got really excited because I typed Donair into Skip the Dishes the other day, and I'm like, that's the easiest way to find out if we have Donair. So I was like, Donair. There is Pizza and Donair is the name of, I guess, a restaurant in town.
Okay. I don't know where that is, but okay.
It might, I don't know.
Probably one of those dinky little in the plaza somewhere.
Yeah, it's something that's delivering on Skip. So it could be a pop-up kitchen, it could be whatever, but there's Pizza and Donair.
Okay.
They do not make Donairs. I was so heartbroken.
Did they ever make them?
Nope, they have Donair sauce on a pizza. And I scrolled through everything. I'm like, it has to be wrong.
Maybe they sold them before.
I don't know. But either way, like that'd be a great opportunity because there's no Donairs. I've lived out west.
Yeah.
And so anyone who knows anything about Donairs, not to like show my true fat guy self here with like food history.
I don't know much about it. You know,
he's a big Donair guy.
Yeah, big Donair guy here. It's a weird flex. Out east is Donair Central. That's essentially where Donairs in Canada come from. But a lot of people from out east went out west to work. So Donairs went out there. So now if you go to Edmonton, Calgary, Grand Prairie, Fort Mac, you can get a Donair as easily as you can get Tim Hortons.
Interesting.
Peterborough doesn't have a single place that I know of, and I'm really hoping that our 18 listeners, somebody writes in and says, like,
hey,
this is actually where you can go to get one.
Can I be on your show? I have a Donair place.
But I need a Donair. It's crazy that we cannot buy a Donair in Peterborough.
You know, don't be surprised if it pops up in the next year or two, right?
They will at least sell 3 Donairs a year to me, so that might be good enough for them.
That's very survivable.
Exactly. But thank you for coming. It was insightful. I was excited to hear your story. I don't think anyone has a more interesting story in terms of starting when you started, going through what you had to go through. It's just the same as what everyone else went through. It's just a matter of you had to do it 3 weeks in. You didn't choose to do it in the middle like some. You didn't have 2 years to develop yourself before. You started at the exact same time a pandemic hit, and to see you not only come out the other side, but double your stores to 2, employ the people you employ, and help the community the way you help the community has been absolutely amazing. So I appreciate it. I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks.
And hope to see great things from you in the future.
Thanks. I look forward to seeing future guests on here.
So do I. We'll see if we can get them.
Mark?
TBD. Mark and whoever the Donair guy is.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.